So, Jim, you're very welcome to our Engage People Elevate series. Thank you very much for taking part. I think that the purpose of these conversations is really, I guess, to harness maybe a little bit about what you've learned along the way, maybe advice, suggestions you can pass on to people who are sort of up and coming in their career, and I guess to learn a little bit more about what's worked well for you. So we might kick off. Maybe I'll ask you about an overview of your career journey, maybe why I think once you graduate, why you went down the finance route, and maybe we'll chat about what you're up to at the moment. So over to you.
Okay, well, thanks, Paul. Thanks for inviting me as well. I'm very happy to take part. So you can tell from my accent that I'm American, and I graduated from the University of California. I was a non-accounting major, so I studied an applied economics degree, and I was lucky enough to join the Big Four in Silicon Valley. And I think that having that diverse educational experience has always been helpful for me because everyone thinks accountants are great at math, but having studied math at a reasonable level, it really has stuck to you. So as you're doing analysis, and you're just not afraid of anything that touches accounting but is outside of that. So it's been great, and having that experience in Silicon Valley has really said to me, I would tell any accountant, and particularly someone who's trained in Ireland. Ireland is a fantastic place to work and live, but it is good to spend a couple of years outside to really broaden your experience. So that's really helped me a lot. So, and why I chose accounting. I've always been interested in economics and business, and it was a natural move. I think I made the right move. I still wanted to learn, so going into the Big Four, the best thing to do was you knew you were going to continue to learn. So it was an obvious choice for me to go into accounting.
Yeah, good stuff. So tell us about Silicon Valley back in the day. What was what did you experience?
Yeah, it was a very different place back then. I'm talking late '90s, and really just the dawn of social, really the internet age. Google, Yahoo were coming to fore there. I did a lot of semiconductors, a lot of hardware manufacturers. So it was a very, very different place than it is now. But what was true and same was that it was venture backed. There was a lot of investment into growth companies, and it was obvious that formula is a formula that's going to work in all industries, and it's here in Ireland as well. So I think understanding growth entrepreneurs and the path that they're on and what they want to achieve really helps an accountant, because then you can advise them, and you've seen a lot of transactions, and you've seen a lot of deals, and you see what works and what doesn't work. So really having that experience, well, some of the industry experience isn't particularly relevant. One thing is you better know your stuff in Silicon Valley, because technical accounting is very much at the core of being an accountant in Silicon Valley. They're doing transactions, they're doing a lot of big deals, and they need to know what the answers are. So always having that core technical experience, something I've always kept with me, but also it's and also being able to advise people on what you've seen work and what you've seen hasn't worked with corporate finance transactions. That's great experience.
Yeah, very good. And what do you remember that stands out from back then? Was your sort of early days shaped by the partners, directors, managers you worked with, or was it more the clients that you would have sort of taken most from? What sort of stands out to you now as sort of being big learning experiences from back then?
Yeah, the partners were a great group of people to work with, and some of the people I work with now are partners, and to see them sit in the chair and get grilled by the CFOs, and to really know that they need to know their stuff, that there's no waffle, there's no not knowing, if you know what I mean. So if you're you'd be surprised, there's over 20 Fortune 100 companies in Silicon Valley, something like that. I don't know the exact number. And I was on those audits, and to see the CFO of HP grill the accounting partner, it gives you that understanding that whether it's at a smaller scale, you need to know your stuff, and you really need to know your numbers. So there's no getting around that. So CFOs unfortunately have a difficult job, in that we have to stand over every number and know the answer to every question when it comes to numbers. So that really helped. But also the looking at the entrepreneurs and seeing their relentless drive and how they don't take no for an answer. So one very hard thing to do is to tell someone no, because if you tell someone they can't do something, that means you looked under every rock and you've looked at it from every angle, and the answer is no. What's more common is yes, but we need to consider this, or yes, we can do this, we should shape it like this. And you need to tell CFOs, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. So if people start getting greedy, you say, well, let's bring it back a notch, and let's be less aggressive, and let's stay in the middle road. You can get 80% of what you want, but that next 20% is very, very risky. And being able to work with a lot of entrepreneurs and understanding their relentless drive to achieve something and to be able to give them advice that makes sense to them. And then they understand, oh yeah, let's just take it back a notch and let's get 80%. And that's the smart move. And those are the types of things that you got from your background. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And tell me about the junction. So obviously people come to that, they after a period of time in audit, some people stick around and they, make a career and they rise to partner. Other people pursue industry. Can you remember what your mindset was at the time in terms of what you were thinking about?
Yeah. I wanted credibility as an accountant, so I wanted to make manager. I thought that was enough of a credential. I didn't see myself as a partner, probably because it's not commercial enough. It is and it's a lot of risk and it's a lot of stress. And I didn't see a good family life there. I saw, particularly in Silicon Valley, all of your customers from small to large are just doing transaction after transaction, and they require that immediate, urgent need. And so I didn't necessarily want that. But having said that, my career outside of that has been a lot of that. So maybe I didn't get what I wanted. But so I made manager, and then I went into technical kind of corporate finance roles where I did a lot of SEC reporting for a company called Exodus, which was doubling in size every year. They were infrastructure, they were data centers, and then they went into bankruptcy, because of the dot-com bust. Great experience, fantastic experience. Really, first time in my life where I had to answer the questions. I had to, tell people how to do and what's revenue, what's not, etc. And it was a great experience. And I took that and we've made a career. I ultimately decided, for personal reasons, I wanted to relocate to Ireland. I had done a secondment with Ernst & Young, so I spent 18 months with EY Dublin. And so, anyway, for personal reasons, I decided to relocate and start a family. But it's been great. And having that first 18 months in Ireland really allowed me to understand that Ireland's a great place to live and work, and there's great career opportunities here as well. So I made that move in 2003.
Yeah, very good. So you mentioned about the when the book stopped with you and the responsibility around that. Looking back now, what advice would you give yourself back then? Did you feel you sort of equipped yourself well, or anything in particular you feel was a real challenge for you, and maybe you would have done things differently?
Yeah, I'd like to say I was perfect, and that's not true. Probably learn how to business partner with people earlier, right? Trying to help people achieve goals. If you just understood that really is a great mindset, as opposed to being in competition with people, but trying to partner with people. I think that's probably what I would have done. But I've changed jobs. I was changing jobs there every 2 years for a while, and I think that was the right thing, because when I moved to Ireland, it took me a while to understand that the Irish market is different than the U.S. market. So I started with a U.S. company, U.S. multinational. And then I realized that might be a great role in the States, but it wasn't the role that was going to give me meaning here. So then I went into what drove me, which was entrepreneurs. I wanted to work with entrepreneurs. So I immediately went into the Irish SME sector. And again, I feel that was the right decision. And every time I've left, I feel like that was the right decision to move on. Because early in your career, you kind of have to be a bit greedy and a bit selfish. And if you're not getting the experience you need at a place, well, then, you try. And if it's still not there, it's time to move on. And that's just probably the best advice I give people, that really keep your goals in mind, what you want to achieve. And if that business is giving it to you, stay. And if not, don't be afraid to move.
Yeah. It's definitely a common theme, basically, when it comes to high performers, like companies who hire, whether it's at CFO level or finance director level or financial controller. It's that continuous momentum. There can sometimes be frustration in the market because you might have someone who is applying for a position, for a financial controller. They've been in a similar role for 10 years and maybe haven't kicked on, and companies tend to hire people who are maybe stepping up into the next sort of challenge on that side. But you touch on something there, and I think the view in Ireland is, like, we're very lucky having all the multinationals in Ireland, and there's a lot of great employers out there. What was it for you, though? You wanted to be in a HQ environment, you wanted to be the one making the decision. Was that was the big motivator for you?
Absolutely. Again, I think I have friends who've made very meaningful careers in some of the Irish-based, the Irish offices of the foreign national companies, the FDI companies. But so that wasn't for me. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be. I'm a kind of an all-rounder, and I wanted to have that commercial experience, that technical experience. I wanted to work directly with the entrepreneur, and I think you can get a lot of that experience in certain divisions of these. But I think you do need to appreciate that the Irish operations of an FDI company is different than the headquarter operations. It is very much a different role. And again, if that's what you want to do, there's absolutely nothing wrong. It's a very lucrative career. I think you can get some great equity, you can get some great salaries. But that just isn't where I saw my career personally.
Understood. And I think we're lucky in Ireland, just the volume of, or when I say volume, there's a lot more Irish companies around who are doing exciting things. Obviously, technology's been a game changer. I think in the fintech world, there's a lot more exciting stuff happening. Tell me about just the CFO space, and we're going to focus in a couple of minutes, maybe a little bit more on your own sector, and you talk about that. But you're what I would call, a sort of a in the top tier sort of CFO space. You've had some really good positions. You've grown companies. You're with an exciting organization at the moment. What's the piece of advice you would say to someone who wants to become a CFO? So you've touched upon the momentum piece there, but to hit that sort of top level within the finance world, what are the sort of the core skills that you think people, if they're not equipped with them now, they really should be thinking about?
Yeah. I'm going to take that question. So obviously, I've talked about the technical aspect and never get away from the technical. You need to be able to answer people's questions, but also keep reading and read broadly and don't read, gimmicky business books, but read classic, like 7 Habits for Highly Effective Leading, Daniel Kahneman's kind of Thinking Slow and Thinking Fast, Factfulness, books that really challenge the way, people make decisions and you're helping people make decisions. So the more you read and read, like, again, industry standard best practice books out there really helps because it keeps your brain moving. And so never stop reading, never stop learning. And when you want to move into a commercial role, you have to understand that we are, as a CFO finance, our job is to advise and analyze and advise. So if you want to be a CEO, that's what you should do. But a CFO is by its nature a support organization. So we're helping people make decisions with analysis and good understanding. So keep reading, keep learning, and not necessarily CPE type learning. And again, not Irish statutory accounting, which is important, but it's more, and again, I think back to your point about FDIs, you can get great experience in there, but you still need to, I think, leave the country and go to the HQs of those organizations to really understand what those companies are about, and then bring that experience back. I don't think you can get all of that experience in Ireland. So anyway, hopefully I've answered your question, but it's keep learning and keep reading.
Yeah, very, very helpful. It's been a common theme of these discussions so far about leadership. I mean, it's highly unlikely an organization is going to progress past the capability of the leaders who are involved, and therefore just continually setting the bar higher. When it comes down to personal development, individually and collectively. And my sense is, and I'm an up and coming sort of business owner myself, but I know that as a group, basically, it's highly unlikely we're going to progress, continue to progress the next stages if we're, a company can set out a leadership structure and a personal and a training structure, but everyone taking individual responsibility, it just keeps raising the bar the whole time, which is I think common theme of strong companies.
It's your passion too. Like, I've hired a lot of people, and it's very obvious people who picked accounting because they like it, as opposed to people who would pushed into it by they think it's a secure path. Now, finance, accounting, business, however you want to define it, like, it wasn't my initial passion in life, and I don't think people need to follow their passion, but I've always enjoyed it. I've always enjoyed the technical, the commercial, and you just need to be a self-motivator, so it's obvious if you have a passion for it, and if you read widely and deeply in a field, even if it's tangential to it, it's obvious. When you're interviewing a candidate.
Very good. So tell me about the esports sector. It's an interesting space. You and I have had a conversation about 6 months ago, and you told me a little bit about it, then you a little bit about it, and then I did some reading up. But maybe tell me about the sector and what you're hoping, maybe how you see the sector evolving over the coming years would be interesting to hear.
So at its core, people consume media differently now. The younger demographic is clued into a different media ecosystem, and what esports is really about. There's 3 big games, and you can really think of them as kind of football, rugby, American football, whatever. They're different things. So there's Dota 2, there's League of Legends, there's CS:GO. Those are the three biggest sports, right? And what makes them a compelling esports is that they're fun to watch. And you see 550 million different people streaming esports. These games are CS:GO is very similar. Basketball with the ebb and flow. Someone might score 20 points, and then the other one, they go on runs, and it makes for compelling entertainment. And what we're offering is people an opportunity to wager on that to enhance their enjoyment. So we're focused on the math modeling, getting the math right, getting the odds right, giving them a similar experience to what a traditional sports book is, but on esports. So we just did a massive acquisition, and that was primarily iGaming and sportsbook, and that's traditional, but that gives us a player base and a license portfolio and market access to grow that esports business. But esports is a demographic pool, so kids are different now. Sportsbook went through this with football 20, 25 years ago, where everyone was betting on horses, and then now you go to before kickoff of a Premier League match, there's over 200 different bets, and that's what we want to do. We want to expand the number of markets for each of these games, and also give people better cash out opportunities. If it was a marathon, you think kind of football betting on sportsbook is at mile 20. We think esports is mile 2 or 3. We need to educate esports advocates, ardent fans, that you have the opportunity to gamble, hopefully safely, hopefully in a controlled way, but you have that opportunity to enhance your enjoyment. And people gamble on what they think they understand. And if you understand esports, I think it'll enhance your enjoyment to place a wager on esports.
Yeah, very good. So looking at the sector over the next, say, 3 to 5 years, what do you see as being the sort of opportunities, and what are the challenges then, or what could slow down your progress? Or you can talk about your own company, Esports Direct, or maybe the sector itself, but maybe if you were to do a sort of a brief analysis.
Yeah, I mean, with esports, our big problem is demographics. Like we're early to this market, and a lot of people who are focused on esports, we think the demographic is around 15 to 35, and we have to make sure that and we're going to be educating a lot of people new to gaming, and we just need to make sure that we do it in a safe way. That we do not take underage bets, and even with young people, we don't want to burn through people. That's one of the reasons why we want to have good modeling. We want to have tighter odds so people have an opportunity to win. Right now, the odds are 2 or 3 times worse than traditional sports books. So we think there's a real opportunity for us to tighten those odds and give people a better experience. But we have to do it in a safe and regular way. So regulations in the U.S. and regulations in Europe are evolving very quickly. We are 100% in favor of positive regulations of the gaming industry. If you look at what Sweden does, they allow people to have a timeout if they think they've maybe gambled a bit too much, and that's industry wide. So that's all operators in Sweden. You give yourself a timeout. It's self-imposed, and no operator can take a bet from you for a while. Germany's limiting the total amount of deposits you can do in a month, and all that's really positive because we want people to gamble in a safe, fun way, and that's going to be an issue. Now in esports, it's going to evolve, and for us as a company, we need to make sure that we really understand the market and go with the evolution. So we're as a CFO, I'm trying to advise people on which investments to make. We invest here, and which are successful and which are not performing like we should be. And we need to be able to evolve and move with the times, because esports, like we said, it's early in the evolution, and there's going to be a lot of change. So we just need to make sure that we're on the right side of that change and we really understand it.
Yeah, very good, very good. And just in relation to what you're hearing about the market in general, I mean, there's all sorts of different prevailing winds at the moment, and a number of things across, COVID, Brexit, basically all sorts of different sort of social issues that have arisen. Climate change, there's any number of different pieces. From a CFO perspective, what do you feel are the biggest challenges? Whether it's your own business and then from a broader perspective with business in Ireland, that you think are going to really, the things to keep an eye out on, and maybe where you think the opportunities might be.
Sorry, could you just rephrase that question? Where I see like some of the big macro changes are going to be?
Yeah, so in the eyes of a CFO at the moment, just with everything that's going on in the world, I mean, and we're in a very positive economic environment, so let's not forget that. But what do you think from a CFO's perspective? What are the things you hear about, or you see yourself directly prioritizing over the next few years?
Yeah. Well, we are in a very we are in a very positive economic environment. People have a tendency to think linearly. So if it's good now, it's only going to get better. And I think with inflation that's coming out, that's something that concerns me because you hear a lot of economists say that really it's not structural inflation, and we were in an amazing low inflation environment for a very long time. And once we get supply chains and Brexit behind us, we'll go back to normal. I guess I'm a little skeptical of that view because if you look at the the amount of savings people accumulated during the lockdowns, I think people are in a very strong balance sheet point of view. And now, as the economies open up post COVID, I think people are going to rush to spend the savings that they've accumulated. And I do think there might be some very structural inflation. And if you think about that, and I think America's ahead of Europe in this. So that means the dollar is going to get stronger, the euro is going to get weaker, and because they're going to raise interest rates, and it might be a difficult capital environment. Money coming out of the stock market into bonds with higher yields there. It might be difficult for companies to raise money. So, and when everyone was chasing yield, it was very, very easy for companies to raise money at very attractive terms. We just raised over $85 million ourselves, so you don't want to be. You want to be Ryanair. You want to have a lot of cash on the balance sheet, and you want to be able to weather these storms. You don't want to, So that's if you're talking about where I see it, I see macroeconomic environment being a concern, something that we have to really consider. And if I knew which way the market was going, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be a millionaire somewhere. So, but things are changing right now, and I think that's key. So you need to make sure we understand which way it changes, and you keep your eye on it. So.
And may I ask, where do you stand in relation to the new, what people call, way of working? Like, so 2 or 3 years ago, I wouldn't say it was a luxury that people could work from home, but some sectors were always digital. A lot of sectors weren't, basically. But any sort of changes from your side, changes you've adopted yourself, and then changes from a team perspective? And
yeah, I would have been probably very old school. Get in the office, talk to people, get moving. I don't work from home unless it's after hours or very crazy times. But I think this is a fantastic development, particularly for people's mental health. And I mean, commuting was really difficult, and I had a good commute. I had about 30 minutes counterflow, and it wasn't a problem. But if you think about it, a lot of people say, when you're working, you have to really love your work because you spend a lot of time with the people you work with. But what's changed is I now spend a lot more time with my family and less people, and I think that's a really good balance shift. And I find myself extremely productive. Having said that, we were a 100% virtual company, and there is a social aspect to work. So we now have an office in Dublin, and I just got the call with people, and people are really energized to get back in the office. So I think it's a balance thing. I don't think 100% of home works. I don't think 100% of the office works. But we've agreed as a finance team to have core days in the office, so we know we're in the office on the same days, so we can see each other and have that team feel. I'm also very lucky because I'm late in my career and I don't need that mentoring and guidance. So what I have to push myself is say, get into the office and also mentor and guide. So you need to do both. So, but it's a balance, and I think the balance has shifted really in a positive way. People should have the ability. You don't need to commute from Dundalk to Dublin every day. You just don't. There's just not a business need to get that person to have that really arduous commute. And you can really expand your talent pool by having a compassionate, pragmatic approach to this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And in relation to maybe if you're up and coming, so say if you go back to your early industry days or even your audit days, would you say the same thing, that maybe having that sort of work from home piece predominantly, would that have been a better fit for you back then, or would you feel that maybe being in an office environment and learning from people around you might have been any sort of considerations there?
Yes, I think it's possible that I would have learned exactly what I've learned now with not going to the office every day. Yes, okay. I think that's true. But you do have to be a bit pushy, when you're working from home. And I encourage my team. I said, listen, if I have time open in my calendar, you can book it. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I do encourage people to book time, to be proactive, and to really lead that a little bit. Now I do some of that, but we all get distracted. So if you're not feeling like you're getting that time or etc. And again, we're doing our core days, so we're trying to find that balance. But absolutely, again, I don't think 100% at home. And again, like I still think people need to get in the work mindset when they're at home. Now, I'm lucky; I have separate space, and then I can turn on. My commute's
Yeah.
walking through the garden and back into our converted office, which is great. But it does change your mindset, and yeah, that's all. But yeah, I definitely think the balance is way better. It's a huge improvement. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, very useful, and some really useful insights shared. So sort of come to the end here, Jim, and then this has been extremely helpful. Lots of very interesting nuggets. If you weren't in finance, if you hadn't gone down the accounting route, what would you be doing now, do you think?
Boringly, I probably would have went into corporate finance in like a banking environment. I had
Right.
the
Okay.
opportunity. I had the opportunity to go on the more, equity analyst, stock trading type environment, and I would have probably went that way. But if I just did completely outside of that, I'm really not sure. I never gave it much thought because
Yeah.
I've always been kind of goal focused, and I got pointed in a direction, and I never wanted to change. So I've always just kept on going. I've had a lot of friends of mine transition away from accounting. Probably my three closest friends that I met in public accounting are all non-accountants anymore. They went into marketing because the internet opened up, and they went into product marketing. That was very much a data-driven thing. So that was. But when I started with, there wasn't even something similar to those roles. So they kind of they pivoted early, and they pivoted correctly. So they've all done very, very well for themselves. So maybe I would have done something like that, but I never felt the need. I've always enjoyed what I was doing. So, but
Yeah.
that's something. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, look, well done. I think just to include myself in this, I think we're very lucky people who sort of, if you find something early on in your career that you really enjoy and sort of get stuck in, it probably feels slightly less like a job, and
It was
more,
always a job. It was
yeah,
always a
okay,
job. It was
okay, well,
always
fair,
hard work. But they're all the same. So I
yeah,
don't have this
yeah,
aspiration to have this passion and follow my passion. I've always thought that was maybe I'm a son of an immigrant. My father immigrated from Ireland to America.
yeah,
Maybe I found that very luxurious to do that. But the
yeah,
point is, I've enjoyed it enough. I
yeah,
have interests outside of work, and the work doesn't necessarily define me as a person. So, but it's always been interesting, and
yeah,
luckily I listened to myself, and I went. It was a big decision to leave Yahoo and go to a small Irish software firm. That was a big decision. It made perfect sense to me at the time to go to this big organization, to a company employing about 60, 70 people. And but it was hard to explain to other people, and it was the right decision for me. So you do just have to, and you have to fail quickly. If you end up
yeah,
doing something you don't enjoy, stop and go do something else. So you don't have to stay on it. But so I have made changes, but it's been tweaks as opposed to big
yeah,
directional changes.
yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant stuff. Jim, you've been very good with your time. I think there's been a huge number of different takeaways for people here. So thank you very much.